Welcome to the digital morgue of the middle class. If you are waking up in 2026 with a crushing weight in your chest, a brain that feels like it's been soaked in lukewarm dishwater, and a deep-seated resentment for the very work that pays your bills, congratulations. You aren't sick, you aren't depressed, and you don't need a mental health day. What you are experiencing is a biological revolt. Your nervous system has finally decoded the lie you've been telling yourself for a decade. It has realized that you are no longer a hunter-gatherer, a creator, or a builder. You have been demoted to a biological component in a massive, cold, indifferent machine that views your life force as a consumable resource. The soft men love to talk about financial burnout as if it's a modern medical mystery. They hire life coaches, they take SSRIs, and they listen to productivity podcasts to find a way to keep going. They think the problem is stress, but the architect knows that stress is just the symptom. The disease is the loss of agency. Human biology is not designed to handle chronic monotony coupled with systemic theft. In the wild, stress was a signal to act, to fight, to run, or to hunt. It was a high-energy state that led to a resolution. But in 2026, your stress has no resolution. You sweat in a cubicle or over a laptop for 50 hours a week, and at the end of that month, the system performs a wealth harvest. Before you can even taste the fruits of your labor, the digits are siphoned out of your account to pay a mortgage on a house you barely see, a car that carries you to the job you hate, and a taxman who uses your money to fund the very bureaucracy that keeps you trapped. Your brain looks at the ledger of your life and sees a negative feedback loop. It sees that no matter how hard you hunt, you stay hungry. And so, your dopamine system, the very engine of human ambition, simply pulls the plug. This is the dopamine strike. When your brain realizes that the reward is an illusion, that the money is just permission to survive another month, it refuses to fire. This is why you can't focus. This is why you feel lazy. This is why you'd rather stare at a wall than open another spreadsheet. Your soul is refusing to provide fuel for a journey that leads to a cliff. The soft men try to hack this with caffeine and discipline, but you cannot discipline your way out of a biological rejection. You are experiencing learned helplessness at a structural level. The architect recognizes that burnout is the body's last-ditch effort to save the self from being completely consumed by the grid. It is an internal alarm screaming that your temporal sovereignty, your right to own the minutes of your day, has been stolen. In 2026, the economy is designed to keep you in a state of controlled burnout. A man who is exhausted is a man who is compliant. You don't have the energy to research the gray zones. You don't have the biological gall to start your own micro-monopoly. You don't have the focus to move your wealth into self-custody. All you have the energy for is passive consumption. You finish your 10-hour day and you slump onto the couch, bleeding attention into a streaming service or a social media feed, buying micro-dopamine hits to numb the pain of your macro-slavery. This is the burnout industrial complex. The system creates the exhaustion and then sells you the cures, the vacations you can't afford, the comfort food that destroys your testosterone, and the entertainment that lobotomizes your critical thinking. You are working to pay for the numbing agents that allow you to keep working. It is a closed-loop system of human farming. The architect looks at this and realizes that financial burnout is a territorial dispute. The system has invaded the territory of your life and established a debt-based occupation. Every bill you pay, every interest rate you service, and every tax dollar you surrender is a tribute paid to an occupying force. The burnout is the feeling of being an exile in your own existence. You are doing honest labor, but you aren't doing it for yourself. You are doing it for the lords of the hourglass. In 2026, the average professional is essentially a tenant of his own time. He doesn't own his day. He rents it back from his employer. He doesn't own his home. He rents it from the bank. He doesn't own his future. He has already sold it to pay for his past. To recover from this, you must stop looking for balance and start looking for escape. There is no work-life balance in a slave grid. There is only slavery and freedom. The soft man tries to manage his burnout by working 45 hours instead of 50. The architect knows that the number of hours is irrelevant if you don't own the result. 100 hours of work for yourself, building your own unshakable asset, feels like a high-speed chase. It's exhilarating. 20 hours of work for a master feels like a death sentence. The difference is intent and ownership. If the output of your labor does not belong to you, your biology will eventually treat it as a parasitic infection. It will try to shed the work through fatigue, brain fog, and apathy. Furthermore, we must address the cortisol ceiling of the modern professional. In 2026, your income is often directly proportional to your stress tolerance, but your wealth is inversely proportional to your health. The soft man takes pride in his high-stress job, thinking the golden handcuffs of a six-figure salary are a sign sign of success. He doesn't realize that the stress is literally eroding his biological capital. He is trading his future health span for current fiat digits. He is aging at 2 times speed to buy things he'll be too sick to enjoy. The architect views this as a bad trade. He realizes that true wealth is the ability to be calm. If your success requires you to live in a state of permanent fight or flight, you aren't successful. You are just a high-status prey animal. Burnout is the signal that you have reached the limit of your submission. Your body is telling you that the cost of staying has exceeded the cost of leaving. The system wants you to stay in that burnout zone forever, productive enough to pay your debts, but too tired to build a revolution. They want you in a state of functional despair. But the architect uses the burnout as a tactical pivot. He doesn't ask, how can I do this more effectively? He asks, why am I doing this at all? And who is actually getting rich off my exhaustion? This part 1 is the brutal acknowledgement. You are being farmed. The burn you feel is your life energy being incinerated to power someone else's empire. If you want the burning to stop, you have to stop being the fuel. You have to reclaim the territory of your soul. The year 2026 is the year of the great disconnection. Millions of people are hitting this wall simultaneously. The soft men will descend into quiet quitting and passive nihilism, becoming the digital peasantry of the new feudalism. But the architect will use this exhaustion as the fuel for his sovereign exit. He will realize that the only way to heal his biology is to restore his sovereignty. He will stop seeking rest and start seeking equity. He will stop seeking management and start seeking freedom. The alarm is ringing. The burn is real. It's time to stop trying to cope and start trying to conquer. Part 1 is the autopsy. Part 2 is the plan. We are just getting started. Let's look at the cold, hard math of 2026. The soft man is obsessed with his income. He brags about his $200,000, $300,000, or even $500,000 a year salary. He thinks he's winning because he can afford the lease on the German SUV and the mortgage on the glassbox apartment. But the architect looks at this man and sees a high-status peasant. Why? Because a salary is the most inefficient, most vulnerable, and most heavily taxed form of human energy exchange in existence. When you work for a salary, you are trading a non-renewable asset, your time, for a depreciating asset, fiat currency, at a fixed rate set by someone else. You have zero upside. You are capping your potential while assuming 100% of the biological risk. If the company grows 1000% because of your brilliant work, the lords, the owners and shareholders, capture that 1000% gain. You get a performance bonus and a pat on the back. You are providing the nuclear fuel for a rocket ship you don't own. The architect understands the sovereignty of the spread. In any business, there is a value created and a cost paid. The gap between those two numbers is where the real money lives. This is the equity. When you work for a salary, you are a cost. Your employer's entire goal is to keep your cost as low as possible while maximizing the value you produce. They are literally shorting your life. They want to buy your 40 best hours every week at a bulk discount. The soft man feels secure because of his steady paycheck, but that paycheck is actually a volatility buffer for his boss. When the market is good, the boss gets rich. When the market is bad, the soft man gets fired. He has all the downside of a business owner with none of the upside. This is the equity void, a black hole in your financial life where your future growth should be. But instead, there is just a stagnant stream of digits that the taxman harvests before you can even touch them. In 2026, taxes are a success penalty for the wage worker. If you earn a high salary, you are in the highest tax bracket. You are literally working from January to June just to pay for the government subscription fee. But the elite, the ones who own equity, don't pay income tax in the same way. They pay capital gains, or better yet, they don't pay anything at all because they borrow against their assets. The soft man is the tax battery of the state. He is the only one who can't hide his income because it's reported by his employer. He is transparent to the system, which makes him targetable. The architect realizes that to be sovereign, you must move your income from the labor column to the asset column. You must stop being a service provider and start being an owner of infrastructure. The psychological toll of the equity void is what leads to the ultimate burnout. You are working in a system rather than building on a system. There is no compounding effect in a job. Every Monday, you start at zero. You have to prove your worth all over again. You are on a treadmill that is calibrated to your exact speed. If you run faster, the machine just speeds up. The architect understands that true wealth is the ability to be irrelevant. If the business can run, grow, grow and generate value without your physical presence, you have successfully decoupled your life from your bank account. This is the only way to heal the biological revolt we talked about in part 1. Your brain stops screaming danger when it realizes it owns a value-generating organism that exists independently of its daily effort. But the soft men are terrified of equity. Why? Because equity requires risk. It requires you to step out of the employee pen and into the predator's field. They have been trained by the university system to fear uncertainty. They want the guarantee. They don't realize that in 2026, the guarantee is a lie. There is no job security in a world of synthetic labor. If an AI agent can do 80% of your task, your high salary makes you a high-value target for a corporate layoff. The only security that exists is ownership of the result. If you own the customer relationship, if you own the proprietary code, if you own the brand, you are unlayoffable. You are the one who decides who gets paid. We must also address the golden handcuffs of 2026. Corporations have become masters of retention psychology. They offer you stock options that vest over 4 or 5 years. They give you health benefits that keep you tied to their provider. They offer retirement matching. These are not perks. They are enclosure tactics. They are designed to make the cost of leaving so high that you stay in the burnout zone long after your soul has died. You become a legacy asset of the corporation. The architect views these benefits as bribes to stay average. He would rather have 5% of a micro-monopoly that he controls than 0.0001% of a megacorp that controls him. He understands that optionality is the highest form of capital. If you can't walk away from the table, you aren't negotiating, you're begging. The equity void is also a status trap. The soft man uses his high salary to buy status proxies, luxury goods that signal he is doing well. He buys a $150,000 watch or a $200,000 car, but these are liability assets. They lose value the moment he buys them, and they require maintenance fees that keep him tethered to his job. He is rich in things, poor in power. The architect, however, uses his capital to buy power assets. He buys land, he buys specialized hardware, he buys equity in people, and he buys Bitcoin. These assets don't signal status to the peasants. They provide leverage over the lords. He is a gray man in the streets, but a sovereign in the ledger. To escape the equity void in 2026, you must undergo a structural pivot. You have to stop viewing yourself as an employee and start viewing yourself as a one-man venture capital firm. Every hour of your day is an investment. Are you investing that hour in someone else's cap table, or are you investing it in your own? Even if you have a job, you must be building your side sovereignty on the weekends. You must be tokenizing your skills, building your own audience, or acquiring physical assets that produce cash flow. You must be extracting value from the machine to build your own alternative machine. If you are just consuming your salary, you are helping the lords build their fortress while you live in a tent. The year 2026 is the year of the equity great divide. There will be a massive class of high-income service serfs who are constantly burnt out, constantly taxed, and constantly afraid of the AI replacement. And there will be a small class of sovereign owners who utilize synthetic labor to scale their own equity. The soft men will continue to argue about minimum wage and employee rights. The architect will be too busy managing his portfolio of autonomy to notice. He knows that in the new feudalism, you are either the leaseholder or the lease payer. Part 2 is the line in the sand. Stop trading your life for a paycheck. Start trading your talent for ownership. Burnout is the feeling of running a race where the finish line is being moved further away by the person who owns the track. The only way to win is to stop running and buy the track. This is the equity mindset. It is the realization that your labor is a seed, and if you keep giving your seeds to the bank and the corporation, you will never have a garden of your own. You will just have a vase with a dying flower on your desk. It's time to take your seeds back. It's time to exit the void. Red light is holding steady. We are at the finish line. We've diagnosed the biological rejection and exposed the mathematical cage of the salary trap. Now, we execute the counter-strike. In 2026, you don't recover from burnout by doing less of what makes you miserable. You recover by building the exit ramp so you never have to do it again. This is the sovereign reboot. It is the transition from asset to architect. Part 3. The sovereign reboot. The architect's exit strategy. The first and most painful step of the reboot is strategic minimalism and the lowering of the burn rate. The soft man is trapped in his burnout because he is a slave to his lifestyle overhead. He has built a life that requires a $15,000 a month fuel injection just to stay upright. He is locked in by his vanity. The architect understands that fragility is a choice. To reclaim your sovereignty, you must first shrink your target profile. You must conduct a ruthless audit of every dollar leaving your account. Every subscription, every finance luxury, every status-seeking expense is a leash that the system uses to pull you back into the grid. By slashing your overhead, you aren't living poor. You are buying optionality. If you can live on 30% of your income, you have just bought yourself the biological permission to take risks that would terrify a soft man. You have created a buffer of defiance. Once the overhead is slashed, the architect moves to the pivot to asymmetric output. In 2026, you must stop performing linear tasks. If you are doing something that an AI can do, or something that requires your physical presence to generate every single dollar, you are a human bottleneck. The reboot requires you to spend 80% of your remaining energy building systems of multiplication. This is the birth of the micro-monopoly. You identify a niche, a specific problem in the gray zone, a specialized software solution, or a unique knowledge asset, and you build a system around it using synthetic labor. You use AI agents to handle the lead gen, the customer support, and the basic coding. You move from being the worker to being the orchestrator. The goal is to create a value engine that produces results while you are sleeping, training, or planning your next move. When you see your first $1,000 generated by a system you built, the burnout vanishes instantly. Why? Because your brain has just received proof of autonomy. The third move is the hard asset migration. The soft man keeps his recovery fund in a safe bank account where it is slowly being dissolved by inflation and monitored by the state. The architect knows that liquidity is a liability if it's held in the wrong place. As you generate surplus from your micro-monopoly, you must move that wealth into unshakable physicality and self-custody. This means Bitcoin in cold storage, physical gold, and productive land. These are hard assets that do not require a permission slip to exist. They are the soil of your new kingdom. In 2026, sovereignty is measured by how much of your wealth would survive a grid down or a bank holiday scenario. By building this hard asset base, you are removing the environmental stress that causes burnout. You are no longer running on empty because you have a reserve of power that the system cannot see or touch. We must also address the psychological hard fork. You must stop seeking validation from the white market. The soft man is burnt out because his self-worth is tied to his job title and his social credit. He wants to be respected by the very people who are farming him. The architect achieves reputational autonomy. He moves his social circle into private networks of other sovereigns. He stops caring about the corporate ladder and starts caring about his bloodline ledger. This is a total rewire of your dopamine system. You stop getting hits from a performance review and start getting hits from the growth of your sovereign estate. This internalization of value makes you unburnoutable because you are no longer performing for an audience. You are executing for a legacy. The final stage of the reboot is the geographic arbitrage. In 2026, if you are living in a high-stress, high-tax, high-surveillance city, you are fighting a war on three fronts. The architect uses his digital mobility to move his base of operations to a jurisdiction of growth. He moves to places where the cost of living is low, but the quality of life is high, and where the regulatory grip is weak. This is the sovereign relocation. By moving to a gray zone-friendly country, you effectively give yourself a 40% raise just by escaping the predatory tax trap of the West. This margin of sovereignty is what allows you to fully fund your independence. You are no longer a tax battery for a dying empire. You are a builder in a new frontier. The sovereign reboot is not a career change. It is a metamorphosis. It is the moment you realize that the system is not a provider, but a competitor for your time and energy. You stop trying to fix your relationship with your employer and start acquiring your freedom. The soft men will continue to cycle through burnout, vacations, and therapy until they are eventually replaced by an algorithm. But the architect has already exited the loop. He has used the burn as the ignition spark for his own rocket ship. He is no longer a service provider. He is a world builder. The year 2026 is the year of the great selection. The grid is getting tighter, the taxes are getting higher, and the synthetic labor is coming for every linear job. You can either stay in the burnout zone and be consumed, or you can use your exhaustion as the signal to reboot. Take the keys, lower the overhead, build the system, secure the assets. The grid is hungry, but it can't eat what it can't catch. Part 3 is your permission slip to walk away from the table. The sovereign exit is open. The only question is, are you an asset or are you an architect? Choose wisely, because the burn is only going to get hotter for those who stay behind. End of protocol.